Halacha Boneh. We're on page 102. Okay, so now let's say 39. We were saying temporary partitions you're allowed to put up, like a curtain over a window, curtain to divide the room. That's temporary. That we said is allowed. 39. Some even temporary partitions are prohibited since they resemble a permanent structure. So some of them are prohibited. What are they? Number one, a partition that is secured on the top and the bottom. So that's very strong, so therefore that partition is not allowed. But if it's only secured at the top and the bottom is floating, so that's mutar. That's not permanent like, right? B, if the partition is made in order to validate a halachic requirement, for example, adding a wall to a sukkah or adding a wall to an eruv to make it valid. Over there, since it makes the eruv valid and it makes the sukkah valid, so then it's considered a permanent wall. Even though you meant to put it there temporary, since it gives you that halachic advancement, so therefore it's a problem. 40. Let's say your light you left on in your room. This happens a lot with people's kids, right? Or sometimes the kids, they turn on the light. You know, they're little, they're 4 or 5 years old and they don't pay attention, or you're 3 years old and they turn on the light, or they forgot to turn off the light. So what happens is now they can't sleep. So what am I going to do? I can't find the goy. So what I want to do is I want to cover the light. So sometimes you have a light fixture on the ceiling, and you can wrap a little sheet around it and cover it, right, and block the light. Or let's say there's a lamp, and you want to throw something over the lamp to cover it. There's no other way to get it dark in the room. It is permitted to cover a light in one's bedroom for purpose of modesty. So now over here they mentioned for modesty. What about if it's for the kids to sleep? We have to check. But here he mentions it for modesty. Modesty meaning to mekayem the mitzvah. Okay, 41. It is permitted to open and close window shutters on Shabbat. Some people have shutters on the windows, and you're allowed to open and close those. 42. Just like when ohel, if one set up a tefach of a temporary partition before Shabbat, you're allowed to extend it on Shabbat. Okay, if it's already there existing and you want to extend it, it will be allowed. 43. Items that are usually assembled and disassembled on a constant basis may be assembled on Shabbat. Okay, let's say a stender, right? It's permitted to adjust a stender on Shabbat by loosening the screws and tightening them, even if one ends up leaving it that way for several weeks. C, it is permitted to screw on the cap of a salt shaker on Shabbat, even though your intention is to leave it like that for a period of time. D, one may attach the pin of a syringe on Shabbat in order to give it an injection to someone who's ill, even if there's no sakana. Okay. E, it is permitted to allow a child to play with Lego or other types of building blocks that are similar to Lego, even though they are building structures and destroying them on Shabbat. Meaning to say, since Lego is meant to be pulled apart and to put together every single time, he builds a nice car, then an hour later he breaks it apart. So over there, it's allowed to play with that. Should adults play with that? Not really. Kids' toys for adults are muktzeh. If he wants you to play with him, so then there's room to be lenient, but preferably it should be avoided. But to build a boat, right, a big yacht, right? Let's say that's a 1,000-piece set, and you're sitting with your son all Shabbat afternoon. You build it, and you're going to leave it on his windowsill, and you're going to leave it like that forever. That'll be asur, because it's not temporary. It's not meant to be taken apart. That you may build one time, you leave it like that to always look at it and appreciate it. But here the leniency is, since he's putting his car together and then breaking it apart every time, so therefore it's not considered really building. Sometimes you have these goblets, right, that you have to screw on the bottom. It just comes to the top with a stem, and then there's a base you have to screw on. 44, disposable wine glass that needs to be built by attaching the bottom half to the cup may be attached on Shabbat in a loose manner, not in a tight manner. If it's a loose manner, it will be permitted. 45, it is permitted to fold disposable napkins in a certain shape on Shabbat, since it's meant to be thrown out immediately after use. 46, Boneh applies to food as well. Making cheese on Shabbat, leaving milk and putting enzymes in it to make it curdle, is considered boneh, since the process of making cheese causes the curds to combine and harden. The curds are then prepared into a mold, causing the cheese to harden into a specific shape. What about freezing items? Freezing ice. It is permitted to freeze water to make ice, or whipped cream to make ice cream in the freezer on Shabbat. You can make ice cream at home. You know, you take some milk, put some sugar, and then put it in a bag within a bag with ice, and shake it up, and it churns it into ice cream. You're allowed to do that on Shabbat. Unlike making cheese, it's not considered boneh, since the item freezes by itself and doesn't have to be shaped. Furthermore, cheese is something that maintains its shape for many days, unlike frozen liquids, which melt within a short period of time and will not retain their shape. And finally, we're Melacha 35. We're almost at the end. Yeah, soter. Soter is the opposite of building. Soter is demolishing. So in the times of the temple of the Mishkan, they had to take apart the planks of the walls that made up the Mishkan. Then they would reassemble it whenever it got to the next destination. So soter has to be al menat livnot. It has to be when you demolish. It has to be on condition to rebuild, and that's will be the deoraita. But disassembling without rebuilding will be the rabbanan. Number one, the melacha of soter, of destroying, is destroying a structure with the intention to build something even better or to improve it. It is only rabbinically prohibited if you're destroying without any intention to improve, or only with the intention to destroy. Number two, taking off a door or a window from its hinge or track is rabbinically prohibited because of soter, destroying. 3, just like adding to a previously constructed ohel is not violation of boneh, so too uncovering this very same ohel is permitted, provided that one leaves a tefach, the ohel remaining. So say you have a tent and you wanted to break apart the tent on Shabbat. It's not allowed. That's soter. It's destroying. But if you leave, you break it, you make it smaller, and you leave one tefach open, so that's allowed because you didn't completely destroy the tent. 5, even though making cheese on Shabbat is not allowed, chopping it apart is permitted. 6, if one lost your key and you need to break open the lock. Okay, if there's a box, there's a stender, there's a door, whatever it is, and you need to break the door to get in because you lost the key. If one lost the key of a box or a cupboard, it is permitted to break the lock to access food needed for Shabbat. However, if possible, one should ask an anju to do it so instead. 8, it is permitted to open a cupboard that has been sealed shut with tape. Tape, we said, you're not allowed to tape things together. That's tofer. But to break it open, it is permitted. And we'll continue with next time. Makeh b'patish. The next malacha, we got to do makeh patish, the final hammer blow, putting the finishing touch on an item. Baruch Amen. Amen. We have Mr. Disharim, and we're done.